Hey, and thanks for joining us on this week's episode of For All Things Lexington, the only show dedicated to Lexington, South Carolina, and where a spade is always a spade. Here we'll talk to and about people, places, groups, things to do, and places to go in and around Lexington, South Carolina. I'm your host, Angela Barrett, and this is For All Things Lexington. Brought to you in part by GervaisStreetBridge.com, Columbia's most unforgettable free-to-list business directory. Hey guys, and thanks for joining today. I have Ebonee Gadsden, who is the executive director of Girls on the Run of Columbia. It's an international organization, and it's desired to inspire girls to build confidence and teach kindness and decision-making or increase their decision-making skills, and the all-importance of the connection of physical and mental health. Mm-hmm. And how that is very much connected, as you and I were just kind of talking about. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Now, you guys serve Lexington, Kershaw, Sumter, as well as Richland County.
Yes.
And different locations where y'all meet. Mm-hmm. The girls can meet for convenience purposes.
Right.
Right. Great. Tell me in your words what Girls on the Run is and who's it for?
Right. I often say, although our name is Girls on the Run, running is definitely secondary to what I feel is the true mission and goal. And it's really just to unlock all of that untapped potential in girls. So empowering them to really see themselves for the power they have within. And running is just a bonus. And again, it's for girls of all abilities. So girls may not be runners, which we kind of talked about that ourselves, but girls that, walk. It's just about getting that movement. And even girls that may have some physical limitations, we're still open to girls at all levels. Mm-hmm. So it's really great because we serve girls in 3rd through 8th grade, mm-hmm. which all years are pivotal, but beyond the research and data, we just know that that's really a prime time in the development of girls, and the fact that we carry over into those middle school years, kind of just making sure their toolkits are full of those things as they grow into teenagers and reach the high school age.
Yeah, and I think for anybody who's had children and they're older now, will tell you that the middle school years are probably the make it or break it, mm-hmm. for sure. And if you don't have those skills going into it, they can, take detours, mm-hmm. Of all kinds.
Right.
Now, you guys have several different programs within Girls on the Run. Mm-hmm. You have Girls on the Run for grades 3 through 5, and then you have a Heart and Soul, mm-hmm. grades 6 through 8. You have a Camp Girls on the Run, and then you actually have a junior coaching program.
Correct.
Let's talk about Girls on the Run, grades 3 through 5. Mm-hmm. What is that?
So that's what we're most known for, because that's really a girl's first introduction to our organization. So we typically meet in schools, which has been most popular, but I like to, remind folks that we're open to any place in the community where girls can come. Yeah. So community centers, if there's a religious organization that has a space, we're able to host that programming there. And for a 10-week session, girls meet with volunteer coaches 2 days per week, and they go through the curriculum. But as they're doing that, there's that physical component because they're building their way up to complete a 5K at the end of the season.
Gotcha. Now, Heart and Soul, those grades 6 through 8. Mm-hmm. What's that?
So it mirrors Girls on the Run for the lower grades. The curriculum, of course, is different, and it's more appropriate for girls at the middle school level. And it's the exact same 10-week concept, and they too participate in the 5K at the end of the season.
Cool.
And something I forgot to mention for both Heart and Soul and Girls on the Run, another component is a community service project that the girls come up with and complete as a team. So a part of the curriculum that they're doing, of course, they're learning about themselves and how to be the best version of themselves, but also how to give that back to the community. And that project allows them to do that.
Oh, that's cool. Cool. And now the camp, which is grade 3 through 5. Now, what is that? I mean, just is it overnight or is it?
It's a day camp. So camp is new. We actually had our first camp this summer. We hosted 2 sessions for 1 week each at 2 different schools in Richland County. So camp is basically a very shortened version of our programming, but it's great for those out of school periods where it may be a winter break or spring break where a school or a group, they want to be able to provide an activity for girls during that period. And we're able to step in and we have our rolled out curriculum that makes it easy. And what we did this summer, we did a 4-hour block each day. So again, if there's a day camp that might want to supplement with a few additional hours, we're able to step in and provide that.
And the actual programs like Girls on the Run and Heart and Soul, so how long does that go for?
So when the girls are meeting after school, each session is about 1 hour and 15 minutes to 1.5 hours.
Is it 6
Twice
weeks?
per week. It's 10 weeks.
10 weeks.
10 weeks.
Okay.
And we do a fall season and a spring season.
And you meet like 1 or 2 times a week or what?
Twice per week.
Twice per week for about 10 weeks. Oh, cool. And then you have a junior coach program.
Yeah.
Tell me, give me some details about that.
So it allows girls that are basically high school age to be able to step into that coaching role. We do require that our coaches are 18 and up, but the junior coaches are an opportunity to just gain that experience, whether you have a desire to work with youth or you enjoy the physical aspect of it. They're able to assist and serve the girls in their own community.
And so when y'all meet like a couple of hours, 2 times a week, how much of that is this, I'm going to say, confidence building and boosting skills along with other things and versus running?
It's all integrated in a way where most times the girls are doing things that they don't realize is building up to the running. So it could be an activity where we're talking about heart, and it's more so dealing with the social emotional aspect of it. So there could be a circuit built around heart, and we'll spell out the word heart, and there's stations where there will be a discussion point, or you're discussing something as you're doing, lunges or as you're doing squats.
Gotcha.
And even when we're doing lap activities, there are things that the girls will run laps, but each lap they're thinking about something that brings them joy, or they'll write down on the poster when they finish a lap, something that brought me joy. All right, great, another lap. Think of another thing. So
Right. I gotcha.
It's about 50-50, I'd say.
Gotcha. No, and you were mentioning the curriculum, but there are lesson plans that for each of these groups, and I think on your website, in fact, they gave some examples of those. But can you tell everybody what an example of a lesson plan might look like?
Sure. So again, we're talking about 90 minutes max, dealing with between 15 to 40 girls, depending on the location. So it's structured in a way where kind of like a teacher's curriculum, so to speak, but you come in, there's an opening activity because most times it's after school. So you're trying to make that transition and really bring the girls in and get into the zone for Girls on the Run. And there's always that introduction. There's a warm-up, which, as I spoke a little bit earlier, it could be more so stretching as we're talking through what the lesson is that we'll be going over today. There's always a journal aspect. So girls receive a journal as part of their kit. So there's a period of journaling just to allow them to get out whatever thoughts they have. And then typically, because there's a coach, or well, typically two coaches and an assistant, you have the opportunity to either split off in groups. So you're having a group that does maybe a game around the lesson for the day, and another group is able to work on the circuit in this area. So a lot of moving pieces in a seemingly short amount of time.
Sounds that way.
Tons of water breaks, of course, snack break in there. And then some of the lessons are hands-on, where they're either doing something, molding, building, making sort of thing. So that's it in a nutshell. It seems like so much. I'm just trying to...
Right.
Don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed.
Right. Now, the programs are all geared life. I think y'all put it on your website as life skills, or and they involve things as confidence and character and care, connections, confidence, and contribution. So let's talk about confidence. Short of, at the end, you should be able to make it through a 5K, which is, for somebody who has not run ever before, it is, that's a good feeling when you get to the end. But what are some of the other things y'all do to build confidence skills?
One of my favorites is identifying those things that maybe make you feel less confident. Therefore, you know what those things are, and then working through ways to address it. And it could very well be a girl who feels that I'm not good at making friends. And it's like, well, what makes you not good at making friends? How do you perceive yourself, or how do you want people to perceive you? And one of the things can be, okay, girls, this week, if you see a fellow teammate when you're in school, just wave at them in the hall. Like, that's it. You're not talking, you're just waving at them. And then you come back next week, okay, who saw a teammate that they waved at? How did that make you feel when someone waved at you? How did it make you feel being the person waving at someone?
Right.
Just those small things. And even when I mentioned the things that make you feel not so confident, we do an activity where we see those things that are kind of those barriers, and it's almost just like a breathing exercise. Okay, well, let's breathe in, and as we breathe out, let's push those things away. So things that they could possibly use in a classroom or in a social setting when you start to feel overwhelmed, or you feel like there are things that don't make you feel really good. Just take a moment, let's breathe through it.
Yeah. That's a good one.
And if you get it as a third grader, then, I mean, you're already like...
You're way ahead of the game.
Right.
And what about character? What are some of the things we do to help with character?
Kind of that citizenship piece. And character, it ties so closely into the community because, again, the character that you have, is that what you put on display? And if it's not, let's maybe address some ways that the person that we feel that we are, how do we present that to other people, but also those people that are in our community, how do we treat them? And who are people that we may interact with on a regular basis that we can be, we can demonstrate good character to.
Yeah. And care. What about care?
Yep. So I love how it's all just ties in.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Of course, there's that care for yourself. Self-care is huge. And then also that care for the community. And that's a lot of where the community service project ties into, because it's not the coaches coming up with an idea that they're telling the girls they'll do. It's taking a few weeks and developing some ideas, and letting them find the things that they care about and those passions that they want to address.
Yeah, and the self-care, that's a big one too, especially, again, the middle-aged, middle school kids. Connections. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that.
Yep, connections with one another. The first example about, just waving to your teammate this week, that connectedness that we hope that all girls have at the end of the season. Even finding a new friend and realizing and being able to observe where there may be someone who's not as connected. Mm-hmm. So if you observe that, like, what would you want someone to do, or how would you address that? And just showing that we truly are all interconnected and people aren't so different after all.
Right. And it's okay to be different.
And it's perfect. Like, it's perfectly okay to be different.
Or have a different opinion.
Right. We're not the same by any measure.
Right. But there is always, you're right,
there's always room to feel connected. And this year, we are trying to grow our relationship with groups like the Special Olympics of South Carolina, for example. Mm-hmm. So they invited me to their educators conference this summer. And we have a team where they have a group of girls that are Special Olympic athletes. Mm-hmm. So the other girls on the team are going to cheer on those girls at the Olympics this year. And again, the girls who are the Special Olympics athletes have always existed, and the girls on the run members have always existed. But for the first time, like, they're very intentional about just bringing the two together. Yeah. And showing, again, small community, like, right. Yeah, so there is that level of connection there.
That's great. Competence.
So again, like, we like to think that as adults, we have our idea of mastery and what, competence should not found it yet, and what that, what competence should look like. But again, it points back to the girls, and we're very, very intentional about ensuring that what's communicated, they've received it in a way that they understand. And if not, okay, maybe what ways can we better say this, or better explain, or give examples that might be more relevant to them, because we truly want them to feel competent, and that these are things that they can take and even teach to the grown-ups in their lives, or, their friends or siblings.
We may need a program like this for some adults.
I know, like, wouldn't it be?
And contribution.
Right. So again, that contribution back to society. So this toolkit, it's never truly just for yourself, which is great to have it for yourself. But these, things that you now have, and those strengths that you've, accomplished over the past 10 weeks, how can you then take that and start to pour into someone else a little bit? Right.
And give back to the community in some way, or for third graders, it might be a little tough, but I mean, to family members or friends or things of that nature. That's pretty cool. Now tell me about the coaches. Obviously, they can't be just running coaches, because there's a lot more to this than just running.
Right. And I love it, because I've met coaches and they're like, I'm not a runner. And I said, well, that's quite all right. Again, like, we're not looking for the athlete to be coaches. It's anyone that has a heart and just a desire to really give back to girls in the community. So all of our coaches are volunteers. They go through a national level training. So the training that the coaches receive locally is the same training that they'll get in San Diego, for example. And we facilitate that training. We cover the background checks, which are required to be a coach. CPR certification for those that don't have it. And again, they're willing to coach for a season. So there's no commitment that you have to do it fall and spring, but you're willing to commit for a 10-week season.
Now, again, I think you mentioned some of your coaches are non-runner volunteers, but you have places I saw on the website for other volunteers that could be needed. And what would that be?
Sure. So a part of the 5K is that all girls have a running buddy. So it's an adult that they've either asked to be their running buddy, or we've been contacted to say, hey, we need running buddies for this group of girls. So that's an opportunity for an adult who may also not be a runner, but you're able to just motivate a girl to complete the 5K. Sure. We always look for volunteers that help at the actual 5K, which again, we do 2 per year. So between the check-in and like water station things, for example.
Right.
volunteers are able to serve in that capacity. And if there's a volunteer that has a heart for something more administrative and they're like, none of those are my things. However, here's a skill set that I have, then we're more than willing and would be glad to speak with them and see how we can make them fit.
Running buddies reminded me of a funny story. There was a time that my nephew was doing, I think it was run hard, and don't quote me on that, but to be in this particular race, or any race, I think they always had to have a running buddy. And mom and dad couldn't do it at that particular day, so, they call me Awa, A-W-A.
I love
Awa,
it.
can you? Sure. And of course, my nephew is so fast. So we were in that first group that comes out. Great. I don't know when he finished or how fast he finished, but he looked, I crossed the line, he said, "Where have you been?"
He's like,
I'm like, getting oxygen somewhere.
right, trying not to pass out.
Yeah, so that's my running buddy story, but yeah, he's extremely fast, and I was like, oof. I'll be way behind you. I guess maybe if something happens. Yeah, something happens, I'll pass you maybe.
At some point,
At
hopefully.
some point. Oh, yeah, that was my running buddy story. But yeah, I like the running buddy ideas. I mean, a lot of the runners that I have run with in the past, they have done things like that with different, and programs or kids or
Right.
whatever they might be involved in. But yeah, and that's always a lot of fun. Now, you yourself have children, and how old are they?
So I have a 17-year-old, tearing up thinking about it, 10 and 8.
Wait, please, it's 30. And girls and boys, 10 and 8.
So the 17 and 10-year-old are boys, and the 8-year-old is a girl.
Aw, finally got that girl.
Got their girl. Who's the boss?
Yeah, absolutely.
Always works that way.
Absolutely. So what do you think the most satisfying part of this program is? For you, and then we'll talk about the program in general, but for you, what do you think the most satisfying part is?
It's being able to see, and because again, executive director, I'm not with all the girls all the time.
Sure.
But having those moments where you can see, a session, and from beginning to end, it's like something in the eyes. It sounds cliche, but when you see a girl who kind of gets over a hump,
Yeah.
or especially, I know this summer was fun because there was camp, and we know South Carolina, no matter the time of day, it was just hot. And they're like, "Oh, it's so hot. We don't want to do this." And within 15 minutes, you can't get them back in. We're like, "Okay, girls, we're going to transition." They're like, "But this is so great." And it's like, "Oh, but 15 minutes ago, it was the most miserable thing ever." This profession alone, unlike some where you work on a project, you might not know the outcome, or you're not a part of implementation, this role, you can truly see the impact. And I haven't seen a 5K yet because I'm fairly new, but I've heard feedback, I've read the surveys, I've seen the messages where even girls themselves, they're like, "I would have never done a 5K on my own, and I'm just glad that I actually did Girls on the Run, and guess what? I finished a 5K. And it's of course, yes, you did. Now you truly know. And they're not the ones who are like, "I'm so empowered." That's not their language that they're going to speak.
Sure.
But knowing now you've got something that, no one can ever take from you.
Sure, right. Now, what about some of the feedback, I guess, the gratifications of actually going through the program? I mean, give me some of the feedback, I guess, that you've gotten, either from the parents or the children themselves.
Yeah, the girls and the parents, who parents are always like, "Thank you, so glad, just so glad you exist, and that this is an opportunity for the girls," especially those who hear Girls on the Run, and they're like, "Oh, but I'm not a runner." And we're like, "Just try it, just trust me." And the feedback from the girls, it's always the 3rd through 5th grade girls who the feedback I love the most because they're the youngest group.
Sure.
And just being able to voice what they feel I, didn't have any friends all school year. And even being in class with the same people all day, never felt the true connection. But my Girls on the Run teammates, like, found friends for life. And it's like, I love it. And funny, one of our coaches this year, she's a USC student. She was in Girls on the Run, and she found a picture from 2012 when she and her dad did her first 5K. And I'm like, I love full circle moments.
Sure.
So many who, circle back, or they're like, when can I be a junior coach? And I'm like, well, you're 10 now, so you just give it a few more years. Promise we'll be here for you.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I'm going to change gears just for a second before we finish up, and I'm going to ask you sort of a philosophical, and this is personal, not really anything to do with what you do, although it could. But if you had the attention of the whole world for 5 minutes, what would you say? What would be your message?
Ooh, that's a deep one. 5 minutes, attention of the world. Aside from Girls on the Run, just in general?
Yeah, something you would want. I know my last guest, I think he was like, if everybody would just listen to one another.
I was going in that direction. And not even just the listening, but giving grace. And oftentimes it's easy just to kind of be so caught up in ourselves and what we have going on that we're not as, cognizant of what other people may too be experiencing.
Sure.
So if we just could breathe, take a moment, step back, and, go deeper than that person that you see in front of you and know that there's a story behind them. And I'm not talking like a story from 40 years ago. It could be a story from 15 minutes ago,
sure.
But just giving a little more grace to one another.
Yeah, I like it. That's a good one. So if people want to find out how to register their children and a little more in depth about the program, your website is?
It's www.gotrcolumbia.org. So it's like Girls on the Run Columbia.org. We're also on Facebook. And if by chance someone just Googles Girls on the Run and they go to the headquarters website, there's always the option to search for a local council, and they can put in their zip code and it would direct them to us.
And that would be the same as if somebody wanted to volunteer or be a run buddy or coach or anything else.
Correct, yep.
Great. Well, I thank you so much for being here today. I know you're a busy lady, but between 3 kids and running this organization, just that.
I know, it's always a whirlwind. I'm like, what day is it? Okay.
Right, that's right. But thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for hanging out with us today, and we hope you enjoyed the show. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have a person, business, idea, an event that Lexington needs to know more about, email me, local@forallthingslexington.com. That's the number 4, y'all.
This episode was brought to you by the real estate agents at Home Matters, building on service, relationships, and on what matters to you. Find out how you matter and how they can help you with buying and selling your home at homematterssc.com.